thought I'd try something different tonight, since I was sitting by the fire in my leather armchair with my whiskey. I thought, what a perfect night to read a ghost story. So I thought I would read you my favourite from this old book that I had when I was at school. "Oh, Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad" by N.R. James. It's written at the turn of the century, and it starts off in a fusty old Cambridge college, so there's a lot of potential for reading it with phony, posh accents, posher than mine. Particularly when you're sitting in a creaky leather armchair drinking scotch. So I'll try and resist that. And perhaps I'll even skip a bit, because the prologue is 3 pages of people talking at a Cambridge college before you get to the scene of the story, in an atmosphere and character building kind of a way, but whether you'll have the patience to listen through. I think I'm going to cut off at a certain point and then continue later on, so this will be in installments. But the point of M.R. James Ghost Stories is that you, as you listen from beginning to end, it starts off fairly ordinary, and then a gradually encroaching sense of menace takes you through to a horrifying or shocking conclusion. And this is the classic M.R. James Ghost Story. How many minutes have I wasted so far? "Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad" by M.R. James. "I suppose you'll be getting away fairly soon now, full term is over, Professor," said a person not in the story to the Professor of Ontography soon after they had sat down next to each other at a feast in the hospitable hall of St. James's College. The Professor was young, neat and precise in speech. "Yes," he said, "my friends have been making me take up golf this term, and I mean to go to the East Coast, in point of fact to Burnstow, I dare say you know it, for a week or 10 days to improve my game. I hope to get off tomorrow." "Oh, Parkins," said his neighbour on the other side, "if you're going to Burnstow, I wish you'd look at the site of the Templars' Preceptory and let me know if you think it would be any good to have a dig there in the summer." It was, as you might suppose, a person of antiquarian pursuits who said this, but since he merely appears in the prologue, there's no need to give his entitlements. "Certainly," said Parkins, the Professor. "If you describe to me whereabout the site is, I'll do my best to give you an idea of the lie of the land when I get back. Or I could write to you about it if you tell me where you're likely to be." "Don't trouble to do that, thanks. It's only that I'm thinking of taking my family in that direction in the long, and it occurred to me that, as very few of the English preceptories have been properly planned, I might have an opportunity of doing something useful in the off days." The Professor rather sniffed at the idea that planning out a preceptory could be described as useful. But his neighbour continued, "The site, I doubt if there's anything showing above ground now, must be quite close down to the beach. The sea has encroached tremendously, as you know, all along that bit of coast. I should think from the map that it must be 3/4 of a mile from the Globe Inn, at the north end of the town. Where are you going to stay?" "Well, at the Globe Inn, as a matter of fact," said Parkins. "I have engaged a room there. I couldn't get in anywhere else. Most of the lodging houses are shut up in winter, it seems, and as it is, they tell me that the only room of any size I can have is really a double-bedded one, and that they haven't a corner in which to store the other bed and so on. But I must have a fairly large room, for I am taking some books down, and I mean to do a bit of work, and though I don't quite fancy having an empty bed, not to speak of two, in what I may call for the time being my study, I suppose I can manage to rough it for the short time I shall be there." "Do you call having an extra bed in your room roughing it, Parkins?" said, there goes the posh accent, said a bluff person opposite. "Look here, I shall come down and occupy it for a bit. It'll be company for you." The Professor quivered, but managed to laugh in a courteous manner. "By all means, Rogers, there's nothing I should like better, but I'm afraid you'll find it rather dull. You don't play golf, do you?" "No, thank heavens," said rude Mr. Rogers. "Well, you see, when I'm not writing, I shall be most likely out on the links, and that, as I say, would be rather dull for you, I'm afraid." "Oh, I don't know. There's certain to be somebody in the place, But of course, if you don't want me, speak the word, Parkins. I shan't be offended. Truth, as you always tell us, is never offensive. Parkins was, indeed, scrupulously polite and truthful. Strictly truthful. It is to be feared that Mr. Rogers sometimes practised upon his knowledge of these characteristics. In Parkins's breast there was conflict now raging, which for a moment or two did not allow him to answer. That interval being over, he said, "Well, if you want the exact truth, Rogers, I was considering whether the room I speak of would really be large enough to accommodate us both comfortably, and also whether, mind, I shouldn't have said this if you hadn't pressed me, you would not constitute something of a hindrance to my work." Rogers laughed loudly. "Well done, Parkins," he said. "It's all right. I promise not to interrupt your work. Don't you disturb yourself about that. No, I won't come if you don't want me. But I thought I should do so nicely to keep the ghosts off." Here he might have been seen to wink and nudge his next neighbour. Parkins might also have been seen to become pink. "I beg pardon, Parkins," Rogers continued. "I oughtn't to have said that. I forgot you didn't like levity on these topics." "Well," Parkins said, "as you have mentioned the matter, I freely own that I do not like careless talk about what you call ghosts. A man in my position," he went on, raising his voice a little, "cannot, I find, be too careful about appearing to sanction the current belief on such subjects. As you know, Rogers, or as you ought to know, for I think I have never concealed my views—" "No, you're certainly not, old man," put in Rogers sotto voce. "I hold that any semblance, any appearance of concession to the view that any such things might exist is equivalent to renunciation of all that I hold most sacred. But I'm afraid I have not succeeded in securing your attention." In repeating the above dialogue, I've tried to give the impression, which it made on me, that Parkins was something of an old woman. Rather hen-like, perhaps, in his ways, totally destitute, alas, of the sense of humour, but at the same time dauntless and sincere in his convictions, and a man deserving of the utmost respect. Whether or not the reader has gathered so much, that was the character which Parkins had. On the following day, Parkins did, as he had hoped, succeeded in getting away from the college, and in arriving at Burnstow. I think I need more whisky. He was made welcome at the Globe Inn, and was safely installed in the large double-bedded room of which we have heard, and was able, before retiring to rest, to arrange his materials for work. Excuse me. It's very important to be well watered. When one is using one's lips quite so much. Oh, I feel like a Cambridge Don in the 10th century. Where was I?